That's what I told him. I was like, yeah. Hey, oh, hey, it's legs. It's time for legs. Welcome back to legs. Welcome to legs if it's your first time. I usually do like an intro thing and do a whole thing about embarking on the nuanced journey through the terrain of human motion and emotion. But now I'm getting notifications, and that's rude. So I'm going to turn those off real quick. Anyway, this is legs. This is where we embark on the journey through the nuanced terrain of human motion and emotion, exploring how the active physical activity intertwines with our need for connection and belonging. I'm your host, Will, and I'm coming to you live from, live, I guess, yeah, technically, from sunny Portland. It's like the first sunny day since the last sunny day, which is nice. But yeah, anyway, here we talk about the significance of movement, even better, in our day-to-day lives, and how connecting with others and being physically active and going out, putting yourself out into that world adds up to feeling just a little bit less lonely. Today, I'm very excited. We are talking to, I'm always very excited. I don't know what the hell I'm saying. We're talking to a really rad brand out of Melbourne, Australia. We're going back across a different pond, people. This one is really cool. I met these guys kind of randomly on Instagram, basically because I was stalking their account, and then I reached out and they were nice enough to say, sure, let's talk. But Orlando sat down with me and chatted a little bit about his take on the state of running today, what trail running means, our ability to connect authentically on runs, walking a little bit through their brand, Büite Outdoor, and what they're doing to inspire movement, inspire community, and stay connected to local runners in Melbourne for now until they take over the world. So I'm going to keep it brief, and we are going to dive in. So this is Büite Outdoor for legs. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Cash Only here on Legs. Super excited today. We've got a new brand from another part of the world coming at us, from Australia this time. We've got Büite Outdoor. I came across them on Instagram actually just recently, and was just kind of taken with the whole brand design and everything they've got going. So I reached out and I knew I had to know a little bit more about who they were and what they're all about. So stoked to bring this to you today. Today we've got Orlando from Büite Outdoor. Orlando, I'm going to throw it over to you and let you kind of give us a short intro about you and who you are, where you're calling in from, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, nice to be here. I guess I'm Orlando from Beta Outdoor. I'm one of the founders. Um, yeah, we kind of started Beta as a bit of a COVID project to kind of, keep ourselves sane, and it kind of snowballed and kept growing and growing. And yeah, we're an outdoor trail running brand from Melbourne, Australia. We've kind of been in market now for about just over a year. So we're starting to see like some really cool growth. But yeah, about me, I guess I've kind of had a bit of a history as a footwear designer across a number of different brands. So it's a really cool opportunity for us to kind of build our own thing, and wanting to grow our own brand and do it for the right reasons, I guess.
Totally. Yeah, makes sense. If you weren't talking to me right now, what would you be doing?
Yeah, it's pretty early here. So the time difference, it's just past 6 a.m. So we're kind of, I'd probably be waking up right now and, getting ready to either go for a run or go to the gym. Yeah, it's just the tail end of summer, so it's been some pretty wild weather lately. So getting outside and going for runs has been a little bit difficult. It's either been kind of, like 40 degrees Celsius, or it's been just like kind of crazy, crazy weather, like storming and everything. So yeah, I'd either be going out for a run or I'd be heading to the gym.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, even being 6 a.m., that you were like I guess we'll do a podcast with this weird kid from Portland. That's commitment to the bit. I really appreciate that. Um,
Hmm.
on the run note, I want to know a little bit more about you. Like, so, what was your last run?
Yeah, okay, I guess my last run, it would have been like a little trail run. Melbourne's pretty, where I live anyway, it's kind of more central. It's like a bit of a city, so getting out into the trails is a little bit difficult, but there is some really cool little spots. So my last run would have been in Yarrabeen Park, which has this kind of really cool little single track sections, and it's got some decent, sections of elevation, and we're talking elevation and few few hundred feet, but like you can kind of really get around it, and it's in the city. You kind of get to the top, and you can see a great view of Melbourne and the skyline and everything. But yeah, that would have been my last, and it's just a great kind of section. Like you can kind of go there and you see everyone getting at it, and it's really just like, I guess, for when you do live so kind of metropolitan, it's really like a great way to kind of just get out of the grind and like get into just that outdoor bubble.
Yeah, sure.
Mm.
That makes sense. What do you use your time on runs to do?
Yeah, I guess for me, uh that time's just like decompress time, and it's about like switching off, and you know I, I'm not a big kind of tech guy in running. I love product, and I love kind of you know all the information and things you can gather. But like for me, it's really about switching off and just like kind of disappearing, for an hour or so, and just like being with your thoughts, and whatever's going on in your life can kind of, self therapy session, just kind of talking your way through things, and like learning more about yourself, being introspective, and when you're with people, it's like, time is so precious these days, and I feel like we're very connected all the time, but it's very like surface level connection. Like, everyone's just a phone call away, everyone's just like an Instagram DM away, but it's actually like, okay, this is the time where I can actually be present with someone that I have similar interests with, and I can kind of be around that is, super like-minded, and we can kind of, we'll go for a run, then we'll go grab a coffee, or we'll go for a run and, we'll go grab a beer or something afterwards. And it's really just about that time to kind of make sure that it's not just work, 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 phone, 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 smartwatch, Strava, blah, blah, blah. So it's just about being able to really like just zone out, kind of take the time to be present, and, whoever you're with, or if it's on your own, it's just like being authentic to that person, or being authentic to yourself.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I think that's the juxtaposition between like the always plugged in world and taking that time to unplug, but then also still be able to connect in authentic ways, I think is so important, especially now.
Yeah.
Um, so it sounds like, especially like with what I know about the brand and a little bit of the research that I did, you gravitate more towards the trail running side of things versus maybe like the road running.
Yeah.
Um, what is it about the trails that makes you gravitate towards them?
Yeah. I guess for me, like Melbourne was so locked down for so long. Like there was periods of time where we were kind of, you know, in only really allowed within a 5K bubble of where we lived. So, it was really about, okay, how do we get out? And once we were able to, like, how do we escape and kind of get out? And I think the trails, it's just, and, it's being, I think, gives you more chance to be present and like introspective, and you're with people, you're not dodging cars, you're not kind of having to stop at stoplights. I think as well, like it's not necessarily just about speed and getting better. Road running is very much focused, at least from my perspective, and in Melbourne, like there's these massive, massive clubs, and you see 500 people running together. and you're like, oh my God, like there's just like that's not why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like being able to just, like go park in like a random car park like an hour away and then just, get off track and like find your way back whenever you want. And yeah, I guess as well, like I'm not the fastest runner. So for me, it's like, I want to be able to enjoy my time outside and not really have to focus on all those other kind of little things that make it like, I guess for me, the stress points, like I
Yeah.
don't want to be around 100 people when I'm running. I kind of want to be in my own little world.
Yeah, that makes sense. I joke with a buddy of mine here. There's a lot of running clubs here too in Portland, and some are getting to the point where there's like, yeah, like 100 to 200 or 300 people running down a street. And I always feel so anxious in crowds like that because it's like,
Yeah,
are we blocking cars? Like people are going to get mad at us. I'm not. I don't like getting caught doing things either. Like I get like really nervous about that type of shit. So like yeah, I totally agree with that. And I like to like the way you're kind of talking about trail running versus road running, especially is like this idea that you don't do the fastest, but it's like this like exploration or exploratory kind of mission too. And I think
yeah,
that's like that's such a great thing that we're seeing with the sport. And I think that's why we're seeing such a rise of it too. I think there's a direct correlation maybe too between that like lockdown state and that feeling of freedom that you get from being in the forest or being outside, like in that sort of like your own little realm. That I don't know. I think
yeah,
the mental impact of COVID and all those years is still yet to be uncovered. So it's gonna
yeah.
be
I think
interesting
we're
to see.
still figuring it out.
Yeah,
It's like
totally.
it's one of those things that, like, someone will make a lot of money from all their research
Yeah.
papers and like, but yeah, I think yeah, especially here, it's just about like in Melbourne as well. Like trail running's kind of becoming that new thing, and I guess it's kind of mirrored globally. Everyone's kind of wanting to find their own way of getting outside, and
Hmm.
I think that's the thing I really like about it is that there's not just one way to trail run.
Hmm.
You can be a trail runner if you're walking. You can be a trail runner if you know you're climbing a mountain and going, missing for 3 days, like just like taking off, like being a runner is like, I feel like it's a very defined thing and there's very defined kind of prerequisites and you've got to look a certain way. But being a trail runner, you could kind of do it your own way and it still makes sense and
Hmm.
it's still kind of accepted.
Okay, well, that's a perfect segue, and I swear that I didn't like set you up for this, or we didn't talk about this before. But let's shift into sort of the brand now. Beta
Yeah.
is outside. It's on the site. Outside is Beta. So talk to me about sort of finding the process of finding your name.
It's one of those things. So beta, it's an Afrikaans word. It means outside. So our team is very global. We're a small team. There's two of us, but yeah, my partner, he's from South Africa, and we just thought like it was probably the hardest point, I guess, in the brand development was landing on a name. It's the first kind of touch point that people see. It's like it's got to be punchy, it's got to be catchy, it's got to make sense. We were so focused on product development and brand development that when it actually came down to choosing a name, like we had all these different ideas of what it could be, but I feel like it was kind of, sitting in front of our noses the whole time. It's like, what do we want the brand to stand for? Like we want to be outside and like, as as founders, like we just want to be outside all the time. So, for us, it's like, okay, we love being outside. I'm from Australia. We speak English. My partner's from South Africa. Grew up speaking Afrikaans. So it's like, how do we combine those two? And it kind of just it flowed. It's kind of cool. Like to be honest, we've heard every pronunciation of it. Like we've heard beta, we've heard butte, we've heard beauty, we've heard Büite. So it's like, I think that's the really cool thing as well is that the brand is like a living thing. It's not necessarily what I say it is. It's not necessarily what you say it is. Like as long as you're talking about the brand and your idea of the brand is okay, like it's Butte. Well, then to me, like as the founder, I don't really mind what it's called, because I think that like it's a living thing. It's not necessarily like just got to be this static thing. Like, it's what you talk about other brands like Hoka, Hoka, Nike, Nike, there's just different ways to say it. But yeah, it means outside. And I think that that was really important to us, that we kind of both got our shared experiences into the brand.
Hmm. Yeah, I think once you put it's like art, right? Like once you put it out into the world, you lose ownership of it in a way, and it's all up for interpretation. I
Yeah.
mean, a brand's a little bit different because you do control more of the narrative, but I think once it's out there, yeah, Hoka and Nike, perfect examples. I think I've heard everyone. I remember when it was like Hoka Oni Oni, right? Like people were like doing
Yeah.
1-1 after it too, or whatever it was supposed to be. And I just saw another article that we've been pronouncing it wrong this whole time, and it's I don't know, it's a whole
Mm.
thing. So that's really cool. I like that. So where did the inspiration come from? Not just for the name, but also to get this brand going.
It's that shared experience of being outdoors. So, you know, the inspiration behind the brand was really just to kind of do rad shit all the time. And like, selfishly, that's like work on cool product, go and do cool things, like, be outside as much as possible. And I guess from a brand point, it's like, it's how do we empower people to kind of get that sense of adventure. It's not just all about performance. It's not all about, being the cool guy runner, or like the runfluencer, like it's about being like kind of empowering people to have, or find that sense of exploring and fun. And like, it doesn't necessarily have to be like all serious. Like it can be a little bit funny. It can be a bit quirky. Like you can kind of be a little bit like playful in how you do it. You don't have to portray this like super serious, cool, like I'm at fashion week all the time. It can be like, okay, this is a little bit dumb, this is a little bit silly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for us, like it working in the industry, I guess for a few years now, it's like people kind of want to find that sense of community, the sense of like belonging, like they want to find brands that they can kind of, resonate with. And for us, it was like, okay, well, we like this kind of stuff. Are there other people like us?
Hmm.
And like, we know other people like us. So it's like, okay, we want to create product that we think empowers people to do the things that we like doing and
Hmm.
that they like doing. And so I guess the biggest inspiration was like, you know, we've got our own kind of unique kind of design language. We've got our own unique brand. We want to be performance, but we want to do it our way. We want to kind of be a little bit silly. We want to be fun. We want to be playful. But at the end of the day, it still is like a performance product, and how we can kind of just bridge that gap and empower people to be outside. I guess that's the biggest kind of driver for us.
So what on top of like the inspiration for the brand, what gap in the market did you see Beta filling?
Yeah, I guess like, Australia, it's like a really weird market here. We've got such a big land mass, and we've got like 27 million people, and it's like 90 something percent all live within like 4 or 5 cities.
Hmm.
So, we're super spread out. The terrain's very flat, but we've got like this really global image of being a really sporty and being a really outdoorsy nation. And I think when you look at it from a brand perspective, like there's a clear lack of Australian sports brands for a country that's so, into sport. Like we've got a lot of the surf brands, and that makes a lot of sense. We've got like we're kind of dominated by these big international brands.
Hmm.
And I think the biggest inspiration for us and the biggest gap for us is that why can't there be the homegrown brand that like, is the champion for for Australian brands. So yeah, I guess the gap was like, trail running's a growing sport. You've got these big brands that are kind of coming into the space, and it's kind of yet to, it's hard to see now what their outlook is, but like, are they going to be involved in that trail space, once, and I'm hoping that the kind of in the sport keeps growing, but, like you've got brands like Adidas, Nike, like, they're kind of now getting into it, but
Mm.
it's like, okay, are they really going to be here for the long haul? And I guess for us, it's like we wanted to create super specific product that is for us, and like in Australia, like we we just wanted to be that kind of homegrown story where performance product, we kind of deserve this. Like we've got such a strong market that, why can't we do it? That was really the thing. It's like there we've got our own unique perspective. Why can't we be that number one sports footwear brand? And it's like, why do it for someone else?
Mhm.
Why do it for, a big international brand when we could do it for ourselves,
Yeah.
be in control of it, actually, be really invested in the product, be invested in the brand, be invested in the story, be invested in the community.
Mhm. Looking through just thumbing through your Instagram account and seeing the sort of the engagement on the posts that you guys are doing, seems like the engagement's pretty high. But what's been the sort of the overall reception of the brand in Melbourne and afar, if possible?
Yeah. We've kind of like it's it's true what you say. Like we've kind of got this really core group of followers, so our engagement like is super high, and like the people that have experienced the brand, really, really love it. And I think that's been really like, it's been really cool to see and see the brand grow. Like I said, Australia is still super small market, it's like 1/10 of the US market, in terms of people,
Hmm.
not in terms of like, runners or anything. So we kind of are super, we've kind of found our niche, we've found our people, but it's now like, I guess the next challenge for us is, how do we kind of, how do we fly, get into that next zone of as a brand, like, we've got our kind of core group of customers in Australia, but it's like, okay, for us, it's like, you know, what's next for us? So is it
Yeah.
Europe? Is it Asia? Is it Africa? And we're kind of having those talks now, and we've got a lot of cool stuff coming up, from a brand perspective and from a product perspective. Um, but yeah, I guess to answer your question, the reception's been great. It's just, um, you know, we want to be a global brand. We don't just want to focus on one market,
Sure.
even though, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, you got to start somewhere. But and I think
yeah,
the
no,
more you can,
definitely,
yeah, the more you can build that story locally, I think that adds to
yeah,
how that sort of brand takeover or global takeover or whatever you want to say for that makes it or becomes more of a reality. So
yeah.
one
We
of my
want,
questions is just
yeah,
like what's the end goal? Like what's the 5 year plan? But it sounds like going global with the brand. But like what's I guess the big picture?
yeah. I guess like, like you said, we want to be like, we do want to be the brand champion, and we want to kind of grow. Like the goal is to like kind of grow trail running in Australia. I think like it's a growing sport, but given our climate, given our kind of terrain, it is very road running driven, and I guess that's kind
Mhm.
of mirrored globally. It's more accessible, but it's how do we grow it here, and be brand champions and kind of create a space and a kind of ecosystem where people can kind of get involved in trail running, and it might not be their primary kind of form of running, or like their primary focus in running, but it's like, okay, there's a race on the calendar, I'm going to go and do that, and I want to be supported in that. I want to be, find a community of people that I can do that with, and I want to find ways that we can kind of, personally, I want to find ways that we can kind of connect more with those people. And I guess from a longer term plan, it is just about, growing the brand sustainably. Like, we are still a very small team. We don't want to grow too fast. We want to still be able to control the narrative. Like, for us, it's about like you know, being tactful in how we grow. Like, I don't think it's like, if we got an order tomorrow, for 100,000 pairs, I think, like, it would be awesome, but it would
Hmm.
be like, how do we do it properly, that we can continue to be authentic in the way that we present as a brand? How can we do it in a way that we can still, personally connect with our end consumers and our community? And I think that's like, for us, it's just about kind of being a part of that community. We don't want to just put the product out there, put the brand out there, and kind of wipe our hands clean. We
Hmm.
want to be engaging. We kind of want to make sure that it's like, we're still a part of this. It's still why we set out to do it. It's still the why, like why we are doing it. And it's like, we want to make sure that everything that we do is kind of brand related and brand focused, but still kind of authentic, without, and I guess that's the trouble with growing a brand, is that once you put more and more out into the world, you kind of lose more control. And so I
Hmm.
guess there's that balance that we've got to kind of grow, but still be authentic, and just be true to kind of why we set out to do it.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So I want to shift into, because you touched on something really interesting there about sort of engagement within the community, especially on a local level. One of the reasons I started Legs was because I needed an outlet basically for my brain to connect with other people. So the whole mission behind Legs is kind of this idea that through running we become less lonely. It's like through physical activity with other people that, with other experiences you can share with people, you become a more productive member of a community, society, whatever it might be, whatever whatever word you want to tack on there. But it's sort of through that physical movement that we bolster our mental health.
Yeah.
So I guess I want to know a little bit about like what you guys are doing, like boots to ground work in the Melbourne community that sort of bolsters the mental health, bolsters that community aspect of the local trail running community. Do you guys do anything yet? What are the plans to do it if not? But yeah, sort of like what does your involvement with the local community look like, and how are you going to grow that?
Yeah, I guess it's a great question, and I think I agree. We echo that sentiment here. It's like, being outside is like, I guess, the key to unlocking, better health, and like, ultimately better mental health as well. And I think it's like, being around people, like, it's like the biggest thing. It's like, when you isolate yourself and you're not like, yeah, I guess that isolation is like the biggest thing that kind of stops, that good mental health. But
Hmm.
for us, it's like, we've kind of taken an approach where we want to engage with the community. And for a period of time there, we had our own kind of run club, and that was really great. Like, we'd meet up on a Thursday night. It was like a night trail run club, so it
Hmm.
was super cool. Like, you'd be going, everyone had torches, like, meet up, go for your little like 6K loop, and then we'd always get dinner after. And that was like a really great way for us to kind of, I guess, meet those initial brand champions. So, it's like, we we want you to feel as involved in what we're doing as we are, and so that was really great. And unfortunately, like, the pitfalls of running a small business and running a startup is that the biggest enemy is time. So, like, and I'm sure you're aware of it as well, it's just like finding the time to kind of, actively do these really cool things is
Hmm.
like, it's really difficult. So for us, it's like, we're still really engaging in that community. And we've found that, we attend run clubs, we kind of do these things. But yeah, I guess for us, the plans are to kind of really build out that kind of sense of community, and get back into kind of hosting our own events, and kind of just to make sure that we're kind of you know we don't lose touch with what people want in running. It's really easy to sit from a brand perspective and from a design perspective. Like, it's really easy to sit behind a computer and say, oh
Mhm.
well, this is what I see online, this is what's happening in the space. And it's like, without actually getting involved and being a part of it, like, I feel like it's like a catch-22. Like, you know what's going on in the space, but is it like what you see on the internet's not always
Mhm.
necessarily like the most true reflection of how people feel about it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the filtered version of it, right? Like it's not
Yeah.
the whole story. It's just the prettiest version of it. So in terms of I want to kind of stay within like the local community there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what have you heard especially because it sounds like I like this idea that like Melbourne's not known for being a trail running sort of community or hotbed. Yeah, Beta's there and trying to change that perception a little bit, or at least trying to get people a little bit more engaged. What do you think are some of the barriers that are sort of that people are up against when they first want to start getting into running in general, or maybe just in trail running in Melbourne?
Running, like, for me, like, I didn't grow up running. Like, I was a team sport kid, so I kind of like am a late bloomer in running.
Mhm.
But I guess, like, the biggest barrier for me is like it can be very daunting. I think, like, seeing these big kind of groups of people where, and the Instagram lens on everything kind of can be very daunting and very anxiety. Like, it just it elevates levels of anxiety and things like that. So I think, like, in Melbourne, like, it's like, to see the growth of running as like a sport has been like crazy to see. Like, you see these original run clubs where, like, there'd be like a group of friends just meeting up around, meeting at the Pillars of Wisdom, which is like a pretty iconic spot at the Botanical Gardens that most people kind of kick their run off from. Just
Mhm.
a small group of friends. And now, like, on a Saturday morning, there's hundreds of people in that same kind of run club that are
Whoa.
just running around. Like, it's you should, like, run South Yarra, run dot South Yarra. You should just look at their, like, Saturday morning runs. It's like,
Yeah.
it's insane to see. But yeah, I think, like, the biggest thing that the most daunting thing about getting into running is just like knowing, like, actually how you don't have to run 10 kilometers like as your first run. You don't have to even run 5 kilometers as your first run. You can go for a walk as
Mhm.
your first run, and run between light posts or things like that. And it's like, I think that internet kind of Instagram lens where it's like all hyper performance focus, where you need to be like running a sub 4K, a 4 minute 1K, like a sub 20-minute 5K, let's say, is like your goal. And like, that's the internet's like biggest thing. It's like, you don't need to do that. Like,
Mhm.
you can go running, and like, you can walk for 50% of the run, you can walk for 100%, and you can still be outside. And so I think that's kind of the biggest challenge. And I guess the other challenge for people getting into trail running in Melbourne is that, Melbourne's like, it's big, but it's still really small. Like, like, and everyone lives kind of very metropolitan, So actually getting out and being able to kind of, get to a cool spot where you can go for a really cool trail run. People are time poor. And so, like, actually getting out and going for these runs, it's like, what am I going to drive for an hour to go to this cool trail? Like, I can just spend that hour running. So
Mhm.
I think that's kind of the biggest challenge for us. So it's about, finding these little the gaps where we can kind of just let people infiltrate trail running a little bit, and I think
Yeah.
that's going to be the key for it to grow in our community anyway, is that, just try it. Like, just go for a run in the park, go for a run through, like, yeah, go to Yarraband, go run somewhere where it's like, it's just slightly different. And like you kind of, I think that's like the biggest growth. Because for me, when I got into running, it was like, I was super into that kind of like just, going out running, you know, tracking everything through Strava, tracking
Mhm.
everything, like, meal, like making sure I'm hydrated, kind of everything like that. I was like super focused on that, like really performancey side. And I guess my growth as a runner has been like, okay, how can I make it less of a stressful thing for myself? So how can I actually find more enjoyment out of running? So I think that's like for us, it's just letting people infiltrate it in their own way. So if it's like, going out and, going for a walk, or if it's like, getting into the mountains, like you've just got to try it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no wrong way to infiltrate. It's just getting out there and doing. It's just the physical act of moving, of doing stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was looking at the site before this to, bone up on some of the brand stuff, and I noticed this idea of cool change. There's a little note in there that says if you're from around these parts, you'll understand what cool change means. I'm not from
Mm.
around those parts, but I like the phrase. So explain to me what is cool change, and what's it got to do with beta?
Yeah, I guess like, Melbourne, I guess famously in Australia, it's like 4 seasons in one day. So, like in a week, you could have like 40-degree weather, and then the next day it can be like 10 and raining and like hailing, and like, it's just wild. And so even in the same day, you can have that kind of disparity between like, these two extremes. And I think for us, it's like over summer especially, like you're always waiting for that cool change. You're always waiting for the wind to kind of come in and just like relieve you of some of that heat and stress. So
Mm,
I think for us, like thinking about the brand as like, as a living thing, it's like we want it to be that cool change. Like we want people to think, okay, this is something that's just a little bit different to what we're currently experiencing. This is a thing that's changing what we're currently experiencing. This is a thing that like, and I guess like, I said it before, it's like that infiltration. It's like, okay, like you're, I'm so hyper focused on road running that it's like, okay, oh wow, here's beta. It's just that little thing that kind of gets you thinking like about something else. And I think that that concept of cool change is, it's just a way for us to kind of constantly look at like, what's happening in running, what's happening in life, what's happening in the community, and just kind of like being that slight juxtaposition of what's currently going on. It's
yeah,
just that little bit of the anti.
sure. I also really liked the what is it? The when there's no more room in hell, the dead will run the earth. I think that's one of the shirts that you guys have. Where
Yeah.
does that come from? What's sort of the inspiration behind some of the branding there?
For me, like the brand is, it's my way of expressing things that I'm into and that like my kind of community is into. So like growing up, it's like super, super into like horror movies and things like that. And like to be honest, like the quote is slightly borrowed and altered from a Dawn of the Dead movie poster. So it's when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. And I'm
Mhm.
just, and I thought it kind of resonated a little bit with like the feeling of trail running. It's like, like it is hard. Like, it can be gritty. It can be like, it can be really difficult. And,
Mhm.
like one of my best and worst experiences trail running was actually in a 100K race. And I honestly like, it was one of those things that like I was probably like 40 Ks into it, and I DNF'd, but it was just so hot. It was so humid. It was over summer, going up, like had to climb this, like I think it was like 400 meters elevation, 40 Ks into a thing, and like I honestly felt dead. Like I just felt dead. And for me, it was just like, okay, like that kind of stuck with me, and like that feeling of, like okay, like I'm dead, like I've got nothing left to give, but I'm still doing it. Like
Mhm.
I still have to do it. Like I'm at the bottom of this valley. Like I can't get to a road
Oh yeah.
where like a troopy can come and pick me up unless I climb up this mountain. So it's like one of those, for me, it's just that kind of, that's the feeling of trail running that stuck with me is like, it can suck. Like running can suck, but like you still do it and like we're still drawn to it and I'm still running. So it's like, you know, I've had that experience. Like I wear it like a battle scar, and
Mhm.
now it's like, okay, I'm proud of that. And like I've got that feeling, I know I can feel that bad
Yeah.
and still, overcome it and still enjoy doing the thing that made me feel that way as well.
Mhm. Come to think of it, the way I found out about you guys, I think I saw that post with the skeleton running. So I think that's the I guess I gravitate towards sort of like that, I don't know, branding or that style or whatever you want to say about that
Yeah.
as well. So I was like, okay, I got to talk to these dudes. That's interesting. And that's just like a rock and a hard place situation to kind of like be 40K into a race and then realize you don't have anything left to give, but you still have to for the sake of getting out of there alive. Also, I saw that you guys just dropped a shoe, the hard loop. So congratulations on that.
Yeah.
That's got to be that's
Thank you.
pretty rad. So what's the inspiration behind that? Why a shoe? Where'd that come from?
I guess like for us, like, there's a million and like, all valid. Everyone's valid in kind of putting their brand and their ideas out into the world. But for us, I think we really wanted to focus on doing it kind of our way and, being another apparel brand wasn't necessarily the goal for us.
Hmm.
The goal for us was to be like a performance footwear brand. And I guess our shared experience through life. Like I've been a footwear designer for, a number of years and kind of, it just made sense. And as the idea kind of grew and grew within, um, you know, through talking about it, the opportunity kind of presented itself and it was like, okay, like we've got to do this now. And so
Hmm.
like the shoe, I think it's also a way to kind of, there's actual tech in it. Like it's not just a performance fabric, there's research, there's development. And that's the thing that I love about brand and
Hmm.
design and product is that, product is like it's there to kind of to help people like it's the thing that like helps you do what you love doing and
Hmm.
so for me like and for us it's about creating something that is going to be the ultimate aid in helping you do what you want to do so for us footwear made sense in that and we kind of um yeah, we wanted to do it. Like, working on footwear, it's rad. Like, it's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can kind of build things and people really resonate with footwear. And it's one of those things that it's like, it's not just another t-shirt. This is like also like a costly purchase. So we wanted to make something that was actually like, you know, people were buying that, was valuable for them and was something that they could really rely on
Hmm.
um, to kind of help them.
Yeah, that's great. What's the tie-in with Heads Up Running? I saw that on the.
Yeah, so heads up running was like a term we coined um, for I guess a feeling of running. Like,
Okay.
and there's kind of two lenses to look at it from. Like, from a product lens, the shoe has, I guess, I know it's a mainly audio kind of medium, but the shoe has this um, technology built into it. So we call it the tuning fork. And the tuning fork kind of acts like the way that a mountain bike tire, just like, a lightly deflated mountain bike tire works when it's going over hard terrain. So, it deforms and it changes shapes and it kind of, it's segmented in a way that will kind of, as you go over terrain, it will keep you stable. And
Hmm.
so for us, it's like that stability in running is a way for you to kind of enjoy the outsides more. So instead of going and worrying about, okay, this is the next step in front of me. This is what's going on. Like, I've got to be so hyper focused on my footwork to make sure that I don't, stack it,
Hmm.
that, okay, I've got this kind of trust and reliable thing in my footwear that I don't actually have to focus as much on looking down. You go escape to the mountains, and there's all these beautiful things to look at. And, you spend most of your time just looking at your feet. And so for us, it was like, how do we kind of combat that kind of and let people enjoy being outside more? And so it was like, we want to promote heads up running. So it's like actually running and taking the surroundings in. um, and I guess for me, from a personal standpoint, heads up running is like, we're not looking at the world through a phone. We're not looking at the world or our run necessarily as a segment on Strava. We're not looking at it like this. We're actually taking in the surroundings and being present in the run. So I think for us, it's like, okay, we've built a product with a technology that allows, a runner to be more stable and feel more confident in how they run. And then we want to kind of extend that and instill that kind of thing. It's like, not everything has to be this kind of super performance driven thing where you're chasing that next, that 5 second gain. It's okay,
Hmm.
okay, just enjoy the outside where you are, enjoy that environment, and enjoy, just being present in the run and kind of just taking it all in, rather than like, I guess for us, that guiding thing is like, you're trail running, you got to look down at your feet to make sure you don't stack it. So it's just about instilling that kind of confidence in people to
Hmm.
kind of, you know, look at running a bit differently, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that idea of heads up running. I feel like anything that's going to get me away from just looking down, like you were saying, and like actually being present into like connecting with the surroundings or whatever it might be is just it seems like such a minor thing, but it's a major, like when you notice it, it's such a major thing.
It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
no, go
there
ahead.
you go. No, go.
I was just gonna say, so I want to kind of like extend that a little bit because I think you were starting to get to like sort of what people should feel when they interact with the brand. So be it they buy, a cap or a shirt or a pair of socks or the shoes, what sort of how do you want people to feel when they interact with the brand, like wearing it or shopping for it? Like what's the feeling you're going for with connecting to
Yeah, I think that the feeling that we want to instill is that kind of, you know, you are part of the community. Like, you know, no, even if you don't buy anything, if you interact with us and you resonate with us, you're part of the community. It's not this totally capitalistic kind of thing. Like, it doesn't need to be this relationship between you. You're not part of this if you don't partake in this kind of thing. Like, I think, but when people do buy things, and we're very fortunate when they do, but it's like, when people do buy it, we want them to just experience like something that, you know, is a little bit different. Like, it's like it's a super unique, I guess from a footwear perspective, it's a super unique feeling. It is like, people are really starting to resonate with this, and people like what we're doing. And like, it's just reassuring, as a startup business, like, there's days that are really difficult, and there's days that are really, really good. And I
hmm
think it's those days and it's those moments where we're kind of like, you sell something out, or you have like, you get a product review on a publication, and you hear what they've said, how they've interacted with the product, and you're like, okay, like, awesome, like, this person's really connected with it, this person understands what we're trying to do, and this is
hmm
like, this is one of our people. Like, this is a like-minded person that we want to connect with, and we kind of want to continue to kind of, you know be a part of their life and be a part of their community and be a part of, you know when they think of running, we want them to think of us. So it's those things. It's just when you kind of, it's those small little wins. It's like, selling out of a product. It's like, wow, okay, like, we put that into the world, and now it's, this many people thought it was a like was a cool thing to spend their money on. Like
Hmm.
it's amazing. It is really amazing thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's got to be such an amazing feeling. Congrats on that. Um, okay, I want to kind of round us out here, and shift a little bit back into the community in Melbourne, and just ask
Yeah,
for the legs listeners, if one of us were to move to Melbourne tomorrow, looking for
yeah,
a change of pace or whatever, what would be our first steps in becoming an active participant in the local running scene? Like, who are we talking to? What shops are we going for? What clubs are we keeping an eye out for?
yeah,
Where are we meeting new people? What's the deal?
yeah. I think like I said earlier, Melbourne, just to see the growth of running has been like amazing. Like there's thousands of people. So, like park run is huge here as well. Like, every Saturday or Sunday morning, there's thousands of people running around Albert Park Lake. So I guess the thing with Melbourne is that there is all these kind of um, people run a lot of routes. So like, people will run the Tan, which is the botanical gardens, which is like in the city. People will run Albert Park Lake. People will run along the beach. But I think the best way to kind of be a part of, or if you were to move to Melbourne to be a part of running, is to join a club. Like, there's small clubs and there's big clubs like AMPM. They've been kind of doing it for like I think nearly a decade, or maybe they are over 10 years. There's Run South Yarra. There's they're kind of really big ones, but then there's kind of smaller ones where they're really kind of community focused and they're like um, they do really cool things like they support really cool charities. So like No Signal, I think, is probably my favorite run club because they've kind of got their own mission to kind of support charities and support kind of communities that are a little bit marginalized. And the way that they kind of uh, operate is just like they run events and you show up and you kind of just you meet all these people that are kind of into the same thing. So um, yeah, I guess those from a club perspective, but even from a retail perspective, like I'm not sure if you'd have ever seen it, but there's this Up There store which has been like a streetwear kind of boutique in Australia for a long time. They've got their own kind of dedicated performance running store. So it's really cool. Like there's all these kind of really niche kind of things where anything you want from running, you'll be able to get. Like, so yeah, I guess Melbourne, and it's growing. It's such a vibrant kind of um, big growing community that I think like yeah, it's just about finding the people that you resonate with.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I got to get down there. I think that's on my bucket list. I've got like, 10 places to go, but
Yeah,
Melbourne's on there. So I guess just finally I want to know, or we all want to know collectively, what's next? What's next for Beta? Anything we should be on the lookout for? What should we be
yeah.
keeping our eyes on?
I guess currently we're developing, and I know it's kind of seasonally a little bit different, but we're developing our winter collection. So we're working with our suppliers on developing, some really cool winter running apparel. And then from a footwear perspective, um, it's just about growing and expanding the range. So we've kind of been hyper focused um, on an initial colorway, and I think that's been kind of a key driver for our growth. Just to focus all the marketing in one point, but now it's about like growing and growing the range, growing the color palette, working on version 2, which is really exciting and keep your eyes peeled because there's a lot going on, and it's just about finding finding the right time to kind of press go.
Awesome. Well, cool. I feel like we've got like sort of a front row seat now. We're getting in on like at a good point to
Yeah.
keep our eyes out for fresh stuff. Orlando, thank you so much. I really appreciate the deep dive into the brand and the community there and what you guys are doing to help support it. Seems like a really rad time. Not only to sort of do what you do, but also be in Melbourne for this kind of like, you know, surgence of or groundswell of maybe like where trail running is going and how you guys are adding to that. So I really appreciate your time today. And I think this is going to be great. And a lot of people are going to be really stoked on this.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of
Nice to meet
course.
you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.